Hello, and thank you for listening to my presentation titled Eleanor and Park, a didactical lesson design aimed towards literary analysis in the upper secondary school ESL classroom. And it is based on the novel Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell, the author. First on to the what, how, and why. First, the what. The class in question is in the second year of vocational education, or training if you will, within the program Barne- og ungdomsarbeider, and they are the ages 17 to 18. The lesson outlined herein is aimed at writing a formalized text, in this case an analytical book report, as well as discuss their findings with other pupils. How? By using specific study questions related to literary analysis, I hope to prompt the pupils to approach the text with an analytical mind. Why? The book deals with topics that are relevant to the pupils within the vocational program Barne- og ungdomsarbeider specifically, and thusly accommodates the general emphasis on cross-curricular learning. Topics include, but are not limited to, child abuse, adolescence, bullying, and identity. The pupils belong to the book's target audience, which is specifically reflected, I think, in the book's heavy use of slang and profanity among young adults. The language is also very direct, straightforward, and relatively easy to understand for ESL learners. So at least that's my hypothesis. Competence aims and learning objectives. The competence aims are as follows. To understand the main content and details in texts of varying lengths about different topics. Contemplate culture and social relations in several English-speaking countries. Evaluate and apply appropriate reading and writing strategies adapted to purpose and text type. Initiate, maintain, and end conversations and discussions about common as well as subject-related topics connected to the study program. The learning objectives are as follows. The pupil will display an ability to understand the main content of a novel. The pupil will display the ability to write a formalized text, in this case a book report. And finally, the pupil will display an ability to converse about and discuss their findings with other pupils in groups. There are some physical as well as digital, I suppose, requirements to this project. The first and foremost and the most obvious is the necessary number of books, predicated, of course, on the number of pupils in the class. Then you will need a recipe for the book report to be uploaded to the class's site on its learning. Excuse me. Then you should go through a digital presentation that walks through the various study questions in the book report and explains the purpose of the project as well as the competence aims and the learning objectives that it's connected to. And finally, you should do a presentation on the structural requirements of a book report, and you may, to that end, upload the enclosed example that I've provided to the class's site on its learning. So, step 1, the title. Before you hand out the books, ask the pupils to consider the title of the novel. What expectations do they get from the title Eleanor and Park? Do they have any expectations as to the nature of the relationship between these two characters? So do a quick survey on that. The next step is the front cover. Now that you've handed out the books, ask the pupils to consider both the title and the image on the front cover. Why are the different elements on the front cover, i.e. the title and the surrounding image, arranged in the way that they are? Furthermore, what associations or thoughts or ideas does the front cover now conjure up about the nature of the relationship between these two characters? So over the duration of the next 6 weeks, the classes will be devoted to reading Eleanor and Park, the novel. It's important that the teacher is present and available during these reading sessions in order to provide the pupil with helpful perspectives and or inputs with regards to the book report as well as the subsequent discussions. Step 3, which is the book report recipe. First, you present the book. This is, of course, aimed at the students, at the pupils, I mean. So first, present the book. What is the name of the author? When was it published? You may also write a few lines about the author if you find it relevant to your analysis. Reference the book. Provide a brief synopsis of the novel's story. This is simply, it's important to remember that this is simply the motif of the novel. That is to say, the concrete chain of actions and events that takes place. There is no analysis in this section, but you should still present the central characters of the story here. Then on to the interpretation. What sort of effects do you think the author is going for? And how does the author go about achieving these through, what type of techniques? It's important to connect this analysis to the specific themes that you identify in the book and how the themes are expressed through the author's choice of literary techniques. For example, what is the composition of the novel? How is it structured? How does it start? How does it end? Is the story told chronologically or in retrospect? Is it fragmented? What is the central conflict of the story? Then you describe the characters central to the conflict, to the story. Consider both internal and external character traits in describing them. Are they presented directly, as in subjective narration, or indirectly, as in so-called authorial narration? Describe the environment and the time period in which the story takes place. Why do you think the story is situated this way? And finally, on the interpretation part, what is the language like? Try to see this in connection with all of the above questions. And then the final point on the recipe is the evaluation. What are the themes of the novel? In what way does the story make you reflect on the society we live in today? Did you like the novel? Would you recommend it to anyone? Why or why not? Then step 4, study questions in groups, and this is the oral part of the lesson. After the pupils have finished the book and the book report, the pupils may get together in groups of 3 or 4 to discuss their book reports based on the following study questions. The first set of questions deals with composition. The first question is, what did the first page of the novel tell you about the relationship between Eleanor and Park, and why do you think its apparent conclusion is spelled out at such an early point in the story, even before the start of chapter 1? Study question 2, the ending. What do you think the 3 words on the postcard were? Study question 3, why do you think the author has arranged the story in this way, by seemingly beginning at the end? Then on to narration and characters. First study question. Why has the author chosen to organize the book as a constant switch between 2 different perspectives, while always remaining an authorial narrator? What do you think is the desired effect of this, and what effect did it have on you while reading the book? Study question number 2. How does Eleanor display her feelings for Park, and what does this tell you about Eleanor? Study question number 3. Why does Park change his mind about attacking Richie when he lies drunk on the ground? Then on to the environment. The first study question. Why do you think the story is set in the 1980s and not today? Study question 2. Consider this excerpt. If you weren't born in the flats, if your family didn't go back 10 generations, if your parents didn't have the same great-great-grandparents, you were an outsider. What does this tell you about the environment in which Eleanor and Park are growing up? Study question 3. In comparison with 2018, in what ways are Eleanor and Park's relationship constrained by the time period in which the story takes place? Do you think the story would have played out differently today? If so, how? And then I'm at the sources. As you can see, I am aware that the lack of a proper citation for the book report is evident. I can say that it is based on a standardized document that I have been using for a few years, but it's one that I've made quite a few modifications to, especially in terms of making it shorter as well as a little bit more accessible for the pupils. So I'm not completely sure how to properly cite it, to be honest. So sorry about that. So to conclude, thanks for listening, and I look forward to hearing from whomever may listen to this. Thank you.